Welcome to the next episode of the Powerless Podcast. In this episode, I talked to Alex, who is the one-man band behind Supergold, indie rock band originally out of Florida. Alex and I talk about his start in music, what got him into songwriting, the influences he had from things like everything from Warped Tour to Tom Petty, and his prolificness as a songwriter, how he wrote a song every day or not every day, wrote a song and released them every 2 weeks for a year. And what his thought process was behind that, why his lyrical content has changed to more politically charged critiques, specifically on American politics or American implication on things such as the genocide in Gaza, and a host of different things. So it was really fantastic to talk to Alex. He's one of my favorite singer-songwriters I found over the past couple of years, really. Really enjoys music. Can't recommend it enough. There's a lot of music he's released over the past couple of years. So definitely check it all out. At the end, we'll be playing the latest song he's released, Pastimes, which is probably my favorite one and is very poignant in its criticism of American foreign policy as it relates to Israel and Palestinians and the ongoing violence there. So again, just a really great conversation with Alex. I'm glad you got to jump on and do this with me, and I hope you all enjoy it. Before we get into the episode, just as a reminder, you can find me on all social media at thepowerlesspod. You can support on Patreon for $2.50 a month. There is a merch store, all in the link tree if you want to get a shirt, if you want to get a mug, if you want to get whatever. So definitely check all that out in the links below. And just I appreciate all the feedback and all the new connections I've had with people over the past couple of months on this. It's been really awesome. The last thing that I go over in all of these episodes in the intro before we get into the episode with Alex is what has been going on, as I referenced earlier, in Israel's genocide in Gaza against Palestinians, as well as violence in the West Bank. As of the latest reporting from Euromed Monitor, this is again as of May 13th, there are over 43,000 Palestinians dead in Gaza alone. This does not include those killed in the West Bank by settlers and IDF. Over 39,000 of those are civilians. Over 16,000 of those are children. Over 140 journalists are killed. Nearly all Gazans, nearly all Palestinians in Gaza are displaced. Over 900 healthcare professionals killed. The list goes on and on here with the just rampant violence and escalation of destruction and just some of the most depraved things we've seen in at least my lifetime. So with that said, make sure to go to ceasefiretoday.com, where you can find ways to contact politicians, places that you can donate money to if you have the means, resources for anyone in the United States, the UK, or Canada to use to go through all those different facets, find protests as well in your area to really apply pressure where we can to those in power to do the right thing to stop aiding and abetting this. And yeah, I just really hope people check that out. It just takes a few minutes out of your day. I do it every day when I just have a minute or two to spare. It's the tool that we have in applying pressure here for Palestinians in Gaza. All right. After that, let's go ahead and get into the episode with Alex, who is the head of Supergold, the indie rock band hailing out of Florida.
Should expel every student engaged in anti-Semitic activity. I remember Ronald Reagan as governor dealing with the demonstrators. He was going to use the National Guard. He was going to do whatever it took. Couple simple steps. Every university should expel every student.
God, I fucking hate it here. Nothing much has changed in the last 20 years. A couple of guys who decide what's right, telling us lies in the news each night. And I'm not offended anyway. I just don't like the old American way. Land of the free, home of the brave. Another beautiful day in the USA.
There we go. All right, I am here with Alex, aka. I meant to ask this before we started recording, but I guess this is gonna be in the intro. In your bio on Spotify, it talks about that the band Supergold, indie rock band from Florida. It kind of talks about that you started in the 2010s, but in a lot of your social media lately, and with a lot of the songs you've put out, it seems like it's it's you, right? So
It's just
is it
me.
all you now? Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
so as much. That's kind of what the social media kind of gave me the vibe
yeah.
of, like a singer
Hmm.
songwriter, full, kind of one man band kind of deal. But
Yeah,
I was just curious. Okay, so Alex, aka Supergold, again, like I said, independent indie rock band hailing from Florida. I found you through like clips on social media, which is rare for me. I don't like often find bands that way, but um, as I don't know if you looked at this podcast much, but I tend to talk to activists, journalists, political commentators, and bands. And when
love
I
it.
can find a band with like political messaging and stuff, I'm all about it. And clearly, especially um, with the latest songs you've put out, you do have a lot of clear, social and political commentary and a really cool, like indie rock singer songwriter fusion of alternative rock and all these different things that I just found. I found the music really great and also the messaging really
Thank you.
poignant. So I'm happy to have you on. How
I
are you? How are
appreciate
you
it.
doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, hanging out, living in Virginia, enjoying the woods.
So you're in Virginia now, not Florida. That's got to be an
Yeah.
upgrade a little bit, right? Or do you enjoy
Yeah.
Virginia a lot better? Yeah.
It's definitely different. Yeah, I enjoy it. I've lived in Florida my whole life. This is my first time living in another state. It was the first year I experienced all four seasons consecutively and had to endure all of them. Um, but it's beautiful. Last winter was like our first like full winter, like snow, the whole shebang. So that was really fun, like getting to have some snow and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's a nice change. I enjoy it.
Nice. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. I thought what we would do today is kind of look at the start of what got you into music, what got you into
Yeah.
songwriting, kind of look at your pretty prolific catalog from 2018 to now. I was going to get into this later, but do you know how many songs you've released since 2018 off the top of your
I
head?
don't I don't know the exact number.
So I actually went through, at least on Spotify, sometimes people
Yeah.
have things banging around elsewhere. 52 songs released since
Jeez.
2018. And I think I saw
That's
something like
crazy.
14 last year. Like, but the project
Yeah.
the kind of like DIY metal project, kind of recording project I'm doing with somebody,
Yeah.
we were like, oh, we're going to go big. We're going to try to release one song a month this year. We thought that
Yeah.
was so, we thought that was so daunting. We already
Yeah.
missed it by a month already.
I hear you.
But then I saw this and I was like, holy shit, I've got nothing on this guy. This is incredible. I guess to start off things, actually, this is how I usually start things off, just kind of see where people are at. Maybe I'll find out about a
Yeah.
new band or kind of just get where your space is at with music you listen to. What have you been listening to lately? What's kind of on repeat if you use
That's a
Spotify or the equivalent
great
of?
question. I've got my Spotify right here because usually I have to try and answer that question off the dome and can't think of anything.
Yep,
But
same here.
I've got my Spotify. Here we go. What did I have queued up today? Oh, this is not helpful. Recently played. Here we go. This is what I listened to today or yesterday. I was listening to some of the new Billie Eilish album. I haven't finished it yet, but I really liked it. And it's not showing me anything else, so that's not really helpful. You know what I've been listening to a lot is the new Maggie Rogers album. I love that album. It's so good. I love the production, the songwriting. It's great. I've listened to it so many times that every time I listen to it, I like have a different intention for listening to it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll listen through, I'm like really just trying to listen to the production and really focus on that. And sometimes I'm really trying to listen to like the songwriting and like what happens at okay, we're going verse, we're going chorus, what's the dynamics of this part. Sometimes I'm listening just like trying to really hear and understand the lyrics. Um, for me, I think Maggie Rogers is like one of the best songwriters that that I listen to.
It's great when music can be like that, where like you kind of
Yeah.
listen to the same record and every single time you go to it, you get something different out of it. I have to check out. I've
Oh
heard
yeah.
from like like again, I'm more in like I love like all different kinds of music and have performed all different kinds of music throughout my life. But like I lately I'm like
Mhm.
really into like heavy and like more like metal influenced music and stuff. But I've
I
heard
love it.
from people in that space that like the new Billie Eilish record is great. Like I heard the vocalist of like one of the heaviest bands I've listened to in years was like, "You got to check this record out. It's great." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I got to check it out.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm only 3 songs
uh,
deep, and like I already feel like I need another listen to like really get it. You know?
yeah. She's definitely one that like over the and I forget how young she is still too, but just
Yeah.
like has broken the mold a lot of times. I feel like on what's
Yeah.
expected out of pop artists. It's like, you
Right.
actually, I mean, a lot of them are great songwriters, but like you really got to like, you know,
Yeah.
uh, push it to the limit, right? Which is really cool to see.
Absolutely.
Um, Thanks for going over that. It reminds me, I got to check that record out.
Yeah.
I guess after that, what I'd want to start with here for you is just go back as far as you can for me,
Sure.
and just kind of let me know when music started becoming like a big thing in your life. Was it when you were younger? Did you come from a musical family? Was there certain artists you just happened to get into at a young age? What kind of got you
Sure.
into music?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, like a teenager, 13, 14, I was really into skateboarding and I loved skating. I loved everything about it. It was like my goal in life was to be a pro skateboarder. Looking back, I did not have the chops to ever be able to do that. But I was like at the skate park all the time. And in being in that sort of culture, I was watching skate videos all the time. And obviously, listen, there's so much music in skate videos, and I think skateboarding is like such a culture that combines so many other cultures, and I feel like it's not an uncommon pipeline to go from skateboarding to like music. Um,
Yeah.
and so, watching so hundreds of skate videos and like listening to the songs, there was one video that stuck out to me. It was Shane O'Neill's part in a Transworld video that I don't remember the name, but it was a Dr. Dog song. I think it was The Breeze was the song, but that like was like one of the songs I was like, oh, this is like I would go and listen to that song because of that video, and it just stuck with me. So that kind of got me like on like the path. I think that was like the seed that started it. And then from there, my girlfriend took me to go see Cage the Elephant in
Oh,
2013. Love Cage the Elephant. And we went to go see them. It was this music festival. We were there all day. And then like I had been to like Warped Tour and stuff, and like I'd liked music. Those are like my first concerts in Florida. But something about went to go see Cage the Elephant, and I remember like sitting in the crowd watching them, and I was like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like it was like so visceral. This whole like world just opened up to me. It's like I need to learn how to do that. Um, and from that like point on, I somehow got a guitar. My buddy like had a guitar, and I would go to his house, and I would like we would skate, and then when we were done skating, we would sit in his room and watch skate videos. But I'd grab the guitar and do absolutely noodle of nothing, just sounding
yeah,
horrible.
right.
But like I did that enough times where I was like, "Hey Dad, can you buy me a guitar?" Like I can't afford. I'm 12.
Yeah.
And so my dad bought me a guitar, which I still have that one, and yeah, just never stopped. I think I picked up the guitar, I learned as many covers as I could, and for about 6 months I was just trying to like learn cowboy chords and covers and things. And 6 months into it, I was like, I know enough. It's time to start a band now. You know? It's like that. This is good. This is fun. I know
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
I got some of my buddies to start a band with me, and we played terrible shows and wrote really bad songs, and well, we thought they were great at the time. And yeah, it's just been this constant of doing that, of starting a band, writing songs, starting a band, writing songs. And then like let's say 2021 or 22, COVID was in full swing. I had a band that would play with me, but obviously shows weren't happening, and I was like, I was so exhausted from playing shows, from like dealing with promoters and venues, and there's always like a giant hurdle. And for me, I kind of realized that like no one is going to a show for a band they've never heard of, and I'm like, if I really want to make this a career, it's not going to happen this way. It's just there's too much like hand to hand combat of trying to get fans. And TikTok was obviously a thing, and it was really picking up steam, and I was like, this is probably the better route to go. Um, and then from there, just started doing videos and writing songs all the freaking time, and it's great.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna you bring up you bring up TikTok and and Instagram as well for you is like pretty pretty substantial following, right? But like you
I
have like over
appreciate
a
it.
million likes on TikTok. You've got over 75,000 followers on Instagram, and like obviously we know in music and in there's all especially now like you just brought up with social media and everything. Like there's this big mesh of like content creation and music,
Yeah.
right? And like a
Hmm.
lot of people can get burned out by that, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Because you feel like your music is just it can be made for the sake of like a consumption in a 30-second
Yeah.
clip on a 9 by 16, right? Like
Right.
as
Right.
opposed to people like diving into your work or like listening through full songs. People's attention
Sure.
spans are all awful now,
They're
right?
gone. Yeah.
And
Less than a
music is so
goldfish.
saturated. But I do, yeah, to say the
Yeah.
least. Which is why it was great for me to also start a podcast to talk to musicians for an hour and a half. People love that, right?
Yeah.
But but you really have seemed to find a way. You just kind of referenced that transition for you to make it, you know, work for your music, right? People aren't just checking out these clips. You can go to your Spotify, and again, numbers aren't everything. We don't, I think with music
Absolutely.
sometimes people get so in their head about that they worry about that and not just
Absolutely.
like the art form, right? But I mean,
Absolutely.
you have 85,000 monthly listeners. You've got songs that are over 500,000 streams, all that kind of stuff. Um, what did you like? What was it like for you when that first clicked? And
Yeah.
like I guess when it comes to your music and also having the kind of exposure that you do through social media, um, what is that like for you as an artist? Do you enjoy it? What are like
Yeah.
what's the grind? But what are the kind of pros and cons? I guess from that to when you
Sure.
were kind of doing the classic band, quote unquote, and playing gigs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I love playing shows. Like that's what I think I do this all for. And I haven't played a show in like going on 2 years now. And I love doing it, but even that comes with its own sense of burnout. So I know people sometimes compare like the old way of like, you gig and you find fans that way to the new way. And it's like, I got very burnt out doing the shows way, and I love it. I love performing. Um, it's two different animals, with the making content stuff, and releasing a bunch of songs. I love that because it's made me a better songwriter. From when before I did like a song every 2 weeks for a year, um, to now, I feel that I've grown. My songwriting and my production has grown exponentially. Um, it it taught me how to write quickly. A better way of saying this, taught me to make decisions quickly. Um, and to not be so wrapped up in like, is this the right decision, but rather pick one and make it the right decision. Doesn't mean you go back and you go over your drafts and redo lines and things. But it taught me to make decisions quickly. Um, Beyond that, it made my production skills better. I produce all my own stuff and mix everything, and I use DistroKid thing for mastering. And I never went to school for it, and it's helped me get those chops to be better. It I'll also say that going that route, I've seen 10 times the amount of growth as I have the other route. Like it's not even comparable. Um, yeah, it's for me. There's no comparison as to which route was the right one for me. Not to I've seen other bands do it the other way and make a killing and really grow that way, and it does still happen. I just think when I look at myself, and I don't think I'm that different from my audience, I've found more bands through the internet than I have through going to a gig. Um, and that's just what it is for me. Um, yeah, I love doing it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get and I think you're right on that. I mean, it's a pretty simple fact of again, like I said, I've also more when I was in college and things like that. played shows all the time. I think one year
Yeah.
probably played close to 100 shows or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you would still do it to nobody, right? And that was
Oh,
I don't want to
and
say
I
how old I
have.
am, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, and that was a time when, you know, people found bands through YouTube or maybe MySpace or Facebook at the time or whatever,
Sure.
but it's certainly not what it is now, right?
Hmm.
And I do think that's like something people just have to grapple with, that this is the way it is. That, like, I think the model, and like you said, there are bands that make it the, I don't, quote unquote, old school way,
Like
where they still
traditional.
play
Yeah.
gigs, go tour, you know, grow their
Yeah.
fan base that way, all that good stuff. But like, more and more people that you find, or new bands especially, or new artists that
Hmm.
you find them you find them through the internet,
Yeah.
right? Or
That's
find
where
them
I
on, you know
am.
what.
You know.
Right,
Yeah. Like
right.
I'm
um
scrolling too, and that's how I find the new artists that
yeah.
I like, and even bigger artists just through pure recommendation. You know, even if it's like older bands. You know.
Uh-huh.
Um. It's very hard to beat the internet.
Yeah.
You know, for better or
I
for
want to I
worse.
want I want to go back to something you just said, though. Did you
Yeah.
That makes sense with how many songs were out? You said that you put out a song every 2 weeks for a year. Like, was that a conscious
Roundaboutly.
decision? Yeah, I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense from like when I was looking at the years when everything was released. What I mean, you said a little bit about that, but like,
Yeah.
did you make that? Was that like sort of a New Year's resolution for 2023, or like, why? Where did that idea come from to put out like songs that quickly? Because that's intense.
Sure. So around that time I was listening to another podcast called the Independent Podcast, and it used to be hosted with Connor Price and Nick D. Now it's Nick D. And I actually work for him, and so that'll happen through Instagram. And so his advice was to do a song every 2 weeks, and I was like, man, like we're kind of in different genres, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah,
the audience, the music that I listen to, and the audience that I'm trying to attract isn't quite the same as yours. But I still think there's so much to that advice. I think when you look at like people like even like Mac DeMarco not that long ago, he put out like 700 songs or whatever it was. And granted, those weren't all like finished songs, right? They weren't all mixed, completed music. It wasn't a 700 song album, but
yeah,
it does show you how much this guy is writing, like how many ideas he's putting pen to paper. And I think all the titles were just dates. And it's like, dude, it's like every day, and it's like, this is Mac DeMarco, like the indie world, he's writing this much. And so it was kind of like, Nick, we might not be in the same genre, but you're totally right. Is I need to be really diligent about my craft. Um, and that's kind of what it was. It's kind of twofold. If we're talking from like a pure like just sort of like businessy standpoint, I guess is like it did two things. It made me better at my craft. One, just through purely making things all the time. But two, the people that did find me, I was constantly giving them a new reason to stick around. Um,
right.
and but it also comes with like a little asterisk. That's not to say you don't just throw shit at the wall. Like I only put out things that I'm proud of. Um, or as we like to say, we only put out things that we think are sevens, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the reason for that is like, and I'll give you a good example after this, but like the reason for that is you only put out sevens because it takes your ego out of it, right? You might think it's a seven, but someone else might think it's a 10. And you have to leave room for yourself to be wrong. You still have a threshold of quality, right? You still are only putting out things that you're proud of. But if you're only putting out the things that you think are 10 out of 10s, you probably missed out on a dozen other 10 out of 10s for somebody else. Um, and a great example of that was my song Saturdays was my first song to like really get people. I had been grinding, making videos for like a year, like making as much music as I could. I was putting out a video pretty much every day, really trying to figure out how can I attract people online. And my song Saturdays was a song I didn't want to put out. I didn't think it was good enough. I didn't think it was a seven. And my girlfriend Casey and my friend Fulton convinced me. They're like, no, this is a great song. You should put it out. And I was like, all right, it's probably a seven. I'll put it out. And it was my first song to really connect with people. It was my first song to send me down this like political path. Um, with that being said, like I'd never made a political song up to that point. I was kind of hesitant about doing that. Um, and once I did, I was like, oh man, people care not only care about what I have to say, I guess, but resonate with it. And I was like, man, this thing that I was like so worried about doing was the right move all along. And the song that I didn't think that was going to work was the one that worked. So, with that to be said, I guess the sort of advice there is if it's a 7 out of 10, put it out. You know, don't let it die on the
Yeah.
hard drive.
Yeah. That's a great point. Because I think like any good musician, whether you're talking from the instrumental side or the
Hmm.
lyrical side or overall songwriting, you're if you're good, you're your own worst critic. And so,
Yeah,
to your point, like if it's a 7 for you and you are like a legitimate musician, it is going to be a 9 or 10 to somebody else, right? Like
sure.
because you're never likely going to enjoy your own music in a way as like a new listener or someone that's like really
Hmm.
into that side because I don't know. It's you can. I think it's great, and I've slowly myself, just with the little things I do on the side when I have time,
Yeah.
like grown to appreciate what I do as opposed to like it's hard because like you can listen to your own music over and over again in the mixing
Hmm.
process, the mastering process, the songwriting
Yeah.
process, and there's just always something to critique. You could take
Yeah.
any of these songs that you've had success with, American Way,
Hmm.
Antichrist, Saturdays, the list goes on, and I'm sure, like, if you sat there in a certain frame of mind, you could be like, "Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that." But at the
Oh,
end of the
all the
day, it's
time.
a good, yeah, and that's what I mean is like it's hard to like view your songs from somebody else that
Yeah.
didn't spend the days in your room or
Oh,
like
yeah.
late nights looking at like your notes app on your phone or a journal or
Yeah.
whatever and just go
Right.
like, is this good? If I was not me, would I enjoy this? That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
Absolutely. I do
you know
that with my girlfriend all the time. Like I'll show her a song. I'm like, is this a song or is it a caricature of a song? Like, because you've listened to it so many times. But that just made me think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up, and I was going to bring it up a little bit later here, but you brought up Saturdays was kind of the first song that you kind of made the shift a little bit to do a little bit more
Hmm.
of, social political commentary, talk about more serious issues, and
Hmm.
and uh, you kind of said it a little bit there, but was it after the song came out, was it that you felt
Hmm.
more confident in doing sort of commentary like that, or what was kind of your uh when it comes to your songwriting, why in
Hmm.
general did you kind of have that shift to more serious topics in your music?
You know, I, up until that point, I'd probably written like and released like 20 songs in however many months or weeks. And you're kind of when you're writing so many songs and you haven't really found what's connected with people, and in a sense you haven't kind of found your own identity. You're kind of like trying on all these different caps, you know.
Hmm.
And when I say that, it's not to say like I'm reaching out to like all these like abstract things that I don't really connect with, and I'm just trying. It's you're kind of cycling through these things that are like within you,
Yeah.
to try on, and that was just something that I was like, well, I haven't tried this yet, and it is like let's just see what happens, because you write a dozen love songs, you're like, okay, well, I've kind of not to say I've said everything I've had to say, but maybe I've said everything I've had to say up until this point, and so you're kind of
Hmm.
going through yourself and you're like, what is the thread that I haven't pulled on that's inside me? And that was something I was like, well, let's try this, you know, and showed it to my buddy, showed it to Casey, and it was like they were like, you're dumb if you don't put this out. And I was like,
Yeah.
let's see what happens. So
Well, and I guess that can
yeah,
kind of a little bit into the songwriting here for that. We talked a little bit about your prolificness with putting out, God, 2 songs a year is, I mean, 2 songs a week for a year is mind boggling. But um, where have, if you don't mind me asking, where
yeah,
have some of these, the I think in a little bit here, I'll have you maybe do a lyrical or songwriting breakdown, a few of these songs
sure,
specifically. I always like to do that with people as far
yeah,
as your like recording songwriting process in general. But
yeah.
where did some of those kind of political or worldviews come from for you? And were there ever, after you get into that, or if there's much there, if it's just seeing the world as it is,
Yeah,
was there ever like art or other musicians or artists that spoke to you on politics
sure.
or things of that nature?
I think my dad has always been a big Tom Petty fan, and he played Tom Petty a lot in the house when I was young, and so Tom Petty for sure. Um, but also two bands that I really like, the 1975, which
Mhm.
everyone loves. They're great. But also Idols.
Mhm.
You know Idols? I love Idols. I just saw
Yeah,
them
yeah.
not that long ago.
Oh, awesome.
Um, yeah. And so those two bands really inspired me to take the political route. I guess as far as where my politics come from, it's I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I guess just kind of being young in America is the
Yeah,
most generic
yeah,
answer I could give. But it's like it's kind of funny. It's like where do your politics come from? I'm like, look around, man. You see what's
right.
going, Like, how
Yeah,
could you not, it's like, it's like, why did you want water in your house that's like currently on fire? I'm like, cause it's on, where'd you get this idea for water? I'm like, the house is on fire. Like,
yeah.
you know?
Right, right.
It's like, that was a great idea to call the firemen. It's like, for the burning house? Like, what?
Well,
Um,
that's like sorry to, but that's one thing I've
yeah,
gotten. I've like I said, I've talked to political commentators, journalists, and
yeah,
really politically active bands, and some of them will bring up very specific political scholars or this reporter or this
sure.
journalist, and then just as many people. And for me, I'm like kind of in the realm of both, and I get both entirely. It's like, I don't know, life, like you
Yeah,
said,
literally.
being born after 1980. I don't know,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's
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 like
it's a pretty
we've seen
easy
a
thing if you just look around,
yeah, yeah. And it's like I don't know, from watching like all my friends struggle to find
Yeah,
work and like decent wages, like you know.
yeah.
And then that
Hearing
sentiment,
about Yeah, like
yeah,
hearing about your grandpa or somebody being able to work as like a waiter and afford a house, and you're like, I
yeah,
went to college, I can't do that shit. Yeah,
yeah,
like
straight
you
up.
know,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like yeah, my grandpa's house was two raspberries when he bought it, you know.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. Like, but traded like two pieces of plywood for it. I don't know where I'm going with that,
Right,
but anyway,
right.
um, but no, that makes a lot of sense, and that kind of goes to a little bit of your music when it comes to the political or social commentary realm, where I feel like you referenced Tom Petty. I would
Mhm,
say like people like that, or early Springsteen and stuff like that. It, like, had a
mhm.
very they talked about politics, but from like a very like non what am I looking for? Like not talking down to, not being condescending about the topic, but
Sure,
talking from like a working class
sure.
perspective. And that's kind of what I got when I first, this is why I messaged you, is because that's kind of what I
Yeah,
first got from when I checked out your songs. Was like, this
I
seems like
appreciate it.
sort of like the modern era of what like a songwriter would do. They just kind of like saw the world on fire now and just sat down
Yeah,
with a Telecaster and let it rip, right?
I
uh
appreciate it.
so I have a couple of songs that I listed from your most recent stuff,
Yeah,
that I'd kind of want to get your take on, where they came
sure.
from and all that. And then if there's one or two other ones that you're proud of that maybe they didn't get the big boost from the algorithm, or they're just the ones you really
Sure.
enjoy, if you want to
Sure.
break down as well. But obviously your most recent song, Pastimes,
Mhm.
very topical. Your art for some of the other, as an example, some of the other songs you have, or all the other songs you have like a some sort of painting, or or photograph or whatever else. That's
Mhm.
the art form. But for this one, it was straight up the lyrics of baseball
Yeah.
games, apple pie, dropping bombs, funding genocide. You gotta love these great American pastimes, right? Which was like, when I was like, God damn, that's so good.
I appreciate it.
Obviously, like with those lyrics there's a big implication of what the song's about. But if you could
Yeah.
speak to a little bit, uh where did the song come from for you? What was the lyrical inspiration, and what was the songwriting process just in general for you for the song? It was a great song.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the inspiration is from obviously what's happening in Gaza, but it's hard to not be radicalized when you see the sort of images that are coming out from what's happening over there. And I've always thought that if our art doesn't reflect the times that we live in, we're in big trouble. If we're not making things that hold up a mirror to our world and ask ourselves to look in it and say, this is who we are. If we're not holding up that mirror all the time, we're in such deep doo doo. Um, but yeah, when I went to make the cover, I try and submit my songs like the Monday before the Friday that they would come out, and so it's like Monday night, it's like the 11th hour, and like, well, I got to figure out a cover for this, and I was kind of doing my thing with the graphic design. I was like, there's nothing that I could put on this cover that could really illustrate what I'm trying to say. Um, so I thought it made me think of this quote from David Bowie, which I try and implicate in my writing all the time. Is advice that John Lennon had given to Bowie, and Lennon had said to Bowie, say what you mean, make it rhyme, and put a beat to it, something to that effect. And that's what I try and do in my writing. And I was like, when I went to make the cover, I was like, just say what I mean. It's that, like, that first line was like, this is the sentiment of the song. This is what I'm trying to convey. Sometimes, that saying that an image is worth 1,000 words. I only need it, or not I only need it, but like I'm only trying to say a few. It's like
Yeah.
let's just say them. We don't need to shroud this in anything. So that's kind of where the cover came from. It's kind of where the inspiration came from. Yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very, it's another one of those things. Like, I think it's great when someone can talk about this in a way that, not only because, again, there's political artists that have talked about this topic, right? And like, obviously there was the big song that is all over the place
The
now from
Macklemore
Macklemore,
song.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's been songs prior to the last several months that have been on this topic
Hmm.
from like very political bands, or like I
Sure.
got a Rage Against the Machine shirt on. They talked about Gaza in like the 90s, right? Like, this is like
Yeah.
a very long-standing topic people can't talk about. But what
Right.
I enjoyed about this song, which again goes back to that kind of um, like Tom Petty-ish thing that I was talking about
Hmm.
earlier, or Springsteen, is you combine it with a lot of things that people look at as very stereotypically American. Like, the only other thing you could maybe include in this would be like a cold Bud Light at a baseball game
Yeah.
or something. You have a
Yeah.
baseball game on there, actually. Never mind.
Yeah.
But like it's good. It was interesting to see that conjunction and kind of the style you do. Like, a lot of people can kind of have that like Americana vibe to
Yeah.
it, right? Even in the
Yeah.
lyrics, and you did that, and then you succinct it with like the reality of like, yeah, like we do all enjoy a lot of we can enjoy things here that are a part of our culture, right? A few of them that
Yeah.
like are a great part of quote unquote being an American, right? But like,
Sure.
the reality is there's things that are just as intertwined as that we don't like to talk about, but like the
Right.
rest of the world sees it all the time, right? And I don't know, it was like
Right.
it was cool to see that in like just a few lines, like I said, like right at the beginning of the song, that you you can kind of do the like Americana thing and then twist it on its head, like
Yeah.
with with the vibe of it and everything. It was just, I don't know, it was really cool.
I
I wish we
appreciate
didn't
it.
have to make that, but yeah,
Yeah. No, I try and be really intentional about that. When I put out that first song Saturdays and people were like, this is the new Springsteen, I was like, well, first off, like, I could never compare, and I'm eternally grateful for the comparisons. Um, but I was like, maybe that's like a cool thing to explore, is maybe we can take this sort of Americana, I guess, vibe, and kind of flip it on its head and go completely in the opposite direction, and which it's kind of funny because it's like it's exactly what Springsteen did. um you know um so it's the most American thing, I guess, to write American music that critiques America. I
Well,
want to do this thing that I think would be super funny, because like in like a dozen songs now I say America or American. And when I go to play my first show, I just want to be like, guys, everyone's got to drink every time they hear American. I think that would be so funny.
make a drinking game out of your songs. Yeah, that'd be
Literally,
fantastic.
dude. I was
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
my dad that the other day. I was like, we got to figure out like a drinking game. Every time
yeah,
Supergold says American, everyone's got to drink.
yeah. I think people would be all for it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Uh, well, and to I guess to segue to another song I was gonna
Yeah.
bring up, that again is I believe it's the title track of your upcoming like vinyl record, right? That
Yeah,
you have on pre-sale, which I will also put in the notes of
I
this
appreciate
this
it.
episode when it comes out. American Way, which was I think the first one I actually heard from you right before Pastimes came out, and then I went through your catalog.
Right on.
But what was the lyrical inspiration for American Way? I guess we probably got to it a little bit
Yeah,
here and there, but what was the inspiration there? And then anything you can speak to that or the songwriting process, things of that nature for you.
sure, sure. Yeah. The the first line, which was also the first line I came up with, it doesn't always happen that way, was God, I fucking hate it here. I had heard someone or seen someone written that, or it was probably something that someone had put in a comment on one of my videos. And they said, God, I fucking hate it here. And I was like, catalog, lock, I'm gonna save that one for later. Um, and so that's what kind of set me down that path for that song. So once I had that line, I was like, okay, well I see where this is going. And I just wanted to critique the world that we're living in. I was hoping that it could kind of serve as maybe a little bit of a snapshot um, of like this moment in time. Um, and yeah, that was kind of the inspiration for it. I'm trying to remember the chorus now because I don't listen to my own music. um, but there is one line in there that is my favorite line in the song, and I can take no credit for it. It was my girlfriend who came up with it. I'm trying to remember it. I can't remember it. Something about it. Something about a narrative. Um, I'd be a pessimist, but American. Oh, raised on a narrative. That's what it was. I can't take credit for that. My girlfriend came up with that one. I think she's got writing credit on that song. I think I put it in the note in the thingy on the distributor. But yeah, raised on a narrative. That I feel like that line also really embodies the song. That like, I think growing up in America, we've been so heavily propagandized to believe that America is this great country, and in some ways maybe it is, but in a lot of ways it really isn't. I think we've done untold destruction to the world around us, being the imperial core of the world, and I think that's kind of the narrative that we've been fed our entire lives.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've got the lyrics pulled up here myself
Yeah,
looking at them. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that like I've talked to oftentimes like lately I've had like a lot of Canadian guests on here, which is always
yeah,
interesting because a lot of their like social culture, just like how you still got MLB teams, you still got NHL
sure,
teams, you got NBA teams,
sure,
you're just right across the border. It's
yeah,
very much like as close as you can be. Also the UK can kind of be like that a little bit. But whenever
hmm
I'll talk to like I just put up like a song breakdown from an episode I did with a Canadian band called Silverstein with
hmm
their song Born Dead, where we were talking about it's about like healthcare, right? Which is
yeah,
like a huge difference between the United States and Canada, right?
hmm
That would otherwise be, pretty similar in a lot of ways. And he was like, "Yeah, I guess like you guys can talk about freedom because you don't get health care. Is that what freedom is? Like, I
yeah,
don't quite,
yeah,
and
yeah, right,
or like 30, not to be a little like 30 to 40,000 people dying a year because they don't have health care,
yeah,
right? Like
from preventable
like
disease, right,
yeah, from preventable disease or lack of basic like access and all that kind of stuff.
right,
And it is one of those things that like yeah, narratives and basically like American programming to be like, if you just
yeah,
shout you're the best over and over again, maybe it'll be true, right?
yeah, right, literally, yeah,
um
couldn't have said it better.
but yeah, no, thanks for that's a fantastic song. Really enjoy
Thank you.
not just I don't mean to just talk about the lyrics because obviously
Yeah,
the songwriting itself is fantastic from a singer
I
songwriter
appreciate it.
perspective. We talked a little bit about what you're currently listening to at the beginning, but are there like
Hmm
when it comes to at least like the latest songs you put out, do
Yeah,
you have sort of inspirations in mind? I mean, you said Tom Petty a little bit and things of that nature,
yeah,
but do you have like bands or artists or singer songwriters, whatever, that kind of really influence how you write music or how at least you started writing music?
yeah. One band that I'm listening to a lot right now is The War on Drugs. Um,
Great
I
band.
listen to them. They're so good. It's unfair.
Uh-huh.
Like I'll
Yeah.
watch like live videos of them like this. They're cheating somehow, right? Um, but they're a band that definitely influences me in terms of like producing as well. Um, trying to replicate like their tones and things, and hopefully failing and hopefully creating something new out of it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, that's a band that I've been listening to a lot. That's like trying to dissect their production and dissect their songwriting as well. In terms of like different arrangements instead of like trying to get away from like maybe just a straight up pop arrangement. Um,
Yeah.
but how can we do things that are a bit more progressive and just different? You know,
Yeah.
they're a band I look to a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, that kind of that was another thing I like to ask because I'm a music nerd myself. Although, like,
Right.
I'm not quite as good at like the production side as you or people I have on here. But that's why I talk to people, I
Oh, I
guess.
appreciate it.
When it comes to, you said that you self produce. I'm just curious. Like, do you use plugins? Do you use program drums? Like, kind of.
Yeah.
You can nerd out as much as you want to on this stuff. I
Yeah.
enjoy it,
Oh,
even if maybe nobody else
I
listening does.
will. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Don't get
what
me
do you
started,
kind
man.
of what do you kind of utilize when it comes to the actual like production side of your music?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you all my sauce, man. Okay. So I usually most things start on guitar. Um most things start on guitar. Sometimes they start on keys. I've tried to be more diligent about going melody first and getting at least the bones of the song on something that can be played on acoustic or just played vocal piano. I think every time I've done that, I've made a better song than if I tried to produce a whole thing and then try and squeeze a vocal into it.
Mhm.
Um, so I'll do that. But in terms of like producing and like nitty gritty plugin stuff, I use a lot of the Teletone stuff. Um, they're a great company. Pretty much every time they put something out, I'm like, you got my money, you know. I have to have it, you know. Um, I don't play drums. I play everything poorly, and everything is a stretch also. But I don't play drums. I'll use a myriad of things. Sometimes I'm just you know chipping and just hard putting everything on the grid and moving it
Yeah.
around and stuff. Sometimes I'm
Mhm.
doing that. Teletone has a great drum plugin called Tempo that I use a lot. It's a really expressive drum plugin, which is why I wanted it. It feels like I can play drums even though I can't. Like just in the way
Yeah.
that like it's so malleable, that plugin. I love that one a lot. Another one that I use for drums is Easy Drummer
Mhm.
3. Great plugin. I use that one a lot if I need something that sounds like a real acoustic kit. Um, and I can't talk enough great things about that plugin. So I
Mhm.
use that for drums. Guitars and bass and things I usually play. Recently, I think I did this on Pastimes. There's a bass plugin, Teletone again. They've got a great bass plugin. I got it like the day it came out, and I was like, I used it. I was like, this sounds great, but I would rather play bass. And then I was working on a song playing bass, and I was like, this is such a simple bass line. Maybe it would just sound better in the plugin. And I did that. And I was like, well, I'm never playing bass again. I'm about to go sell all my basses. It just like it sounds great. My sort of style of producing it isn't super like scientific. I would
Mhm.
probably be best doing a rough mix and sending it off to somebody else. But I just release so frequently. I hate waiting, you know.
Right.
Um, but uh, I really try and look for plugins that anything that'll save me time, anything that'll get it from here to the screen in the quickest way, I'm all for it. So I've been using a plugin called Vocaline. Um,
Mhm.
I just got that. I use that a lot. Like it saved me so much time having to like sync up, doubles and things. Um, yeah, what other plugins do I use? I use a lot of UAD stuff. I got UAD Spark the other day. Fantastic. I really enjoy that. Yeah, anything that's like guitar sounds is a UAD something. I do
Okay.
have amps. Yeah, I do. I have a JC120 and a Vox AC15. And I do use them. They do make it into songs, but more and more I'm reaching for the plugin because it's faster.
Well, and it's just
Can't
you
lie.
have less less variables, right? You don't have to
Right.
worry about like the room it's getting recorded in or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that like at a certain point when you're doing DIY, like I don't know, like I've
Hmm.
heard great songs from somebody that like they recorded in a garage, right? Like it's a,
Yeah.
like at a certain point, like you don't have to be so nitpicky on that, but like when you
Yeah.
use plugins, and I own like a 100 pound like Joe Satriani tube amp from the
Yeah.
'90s, right? And I
Yeah.
still lug that around for some reason instead of going
Yeah.
digital. But
Yeah.
but there's just something about the plugins that, like you said, if you're going like what can make this as quick as possible, it's like
Yeah.
God, I'm glad I'm not trying to be a songwriter in the '80s. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Literally, dude. Yeah. I was listening to a Jack Antonoff interview, or it was tape notes, and he was talking about, and I relate to this, that sometimes like miking an amp can feel like a picture of the amp of rather than the sound itself. I sometimes I end up in that space. Like I'll mic up the amps and things, and I'm like, it sounds like it's over there, and I need it to
Right.
sound like it's here, you know. Um, and I think that's where the plugins do a great job of, like, if you need it to sound like it's here and not over there, that kind of bridges that gap for me.
And this podcast episode is brought to you by Teletone. No,
Yeah, right.
but
Please
no,
send me stuff.
yeah, please.
They couldn't even sponsor me and send me anything. I have all their stuff. You know?
Yeah, right. What are they gonna
Right?
do? Send you a
Yeah.
prototype, I guess, right? Or
Yeah,
reimburse
right.
you. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
reimburse me.
thanks for going over that. I say
Yeah.
this every single time I go through that. And maybe nobody else listening would enjoy that, but I always
Yeah.
love going over that stuff.
Yeah.
But we went over pastimes, went over American Way. Is there,
Yeah.
whether it's Saturdays or one of the other, or an older, it doesn't have to be political, right?
Sure.
Or is there one or two songs that you really were important for you when you came to the lyrical or songwriting process, or ones that ones
Yeah.
you're proud of, etc.
Man, I'm so proud of all of my songs, even just for me. And like, I feel like sometimes it can be like egotistical to say that, but like, I am.
No.
I work hard on these things, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
If you're not proud of the work you're putting out, what are you doing?
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right. Yeah.
There's a quote that someone told me. It may be a Bob Dylan quote, but it also might not be. But it was something to the effect of, this person started making music because no one was making the music that they wanted to listen to. And so I just try and do that. Like, I try and write the song that I would want to hear, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like a song that I'm proud of, if I had to pick one, my song, let's see, what do I got? My song Red Hot, I was really proud of when I wrote it. I thought that was one of my better choruses. That was a song that when I put it out, I was like, watch out, guys. This is the one. This is gonna take us somewhere. And it's kind of cool because it like didn't do what I thought it was gonna do, and like, that's okay. That's, we're always writing new songs, and whatever, But I've heard messages from people that have maybe found me through another song, and then they find that one, and then they like DM me and stuff, and that's a song that I'm really proud of. Actually, I'll take this a step back even. I have a song called "The World's Gonna Burn," and
Mhm.
that was a song that was like, I wrote it and I was like, it feels good, I like it, but I was like, maybe this isn't like my greatest song. I was like, I've got something else back here that's like, I know I can beat that one. But I was like, it's a 7. My friends really liked it, so I was like, you know what, they like it. Let's put it out there. Well, let's take me out of it. Um, and so I put it out. I made a couple videos for it and just kind of moved on. American Way came out right after that, so it kind of got like all the focus went to that song. But I had someone DM me today, and it was it is one of the most. I'm still speechless from it. I was so grateful for this message, but she DM'd me, and she was like, I heard this song and it inspired me to go to college and become a marine biologist, and that's like her goal now. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, that, there's no greater feeling than something you made inspiring somebody else. And, I'm so proud that my art could touch someone in that way.
Yeah, I mean, both of those songs are very poignant. You know what I could get, and that's I mean, like you just said, like what else could you ask for as an
Yeah,
artist? But then
yeah,
somebody's sending you
truly.
that. You already you
Yeah,
made it. You're done. You know, you got it. No,
yeah.
I'm just
I
kidding.
was like,
But
hang it up. Yeah,
you
right.
changed the world, right? No,
Yeah, I could,
but
man, and I'd be grateful.
But what I got out of I actually meant to bring this one up, so I'm glad you did. But
Yeah,
you brought up like the Red Hot White Blooded song, which again,
yeah,
very poignant. Obviously, like from it talks sort of about a lot of like at least from what I got from it, it was sort of like you know right wing indoctrination, right? Or like
yeah. Hmm.
the sort of like quintessential. I was gonna say stereotypical, but it's not because there's a lot of people like this.
Sure.
But like the kind of Christian nationalistic right
Hmm.
wing wave
Yeah,
that's happened, especially over the last several
yeah.
years. Um, uh, lyrically, it's probably pretty obvious from the lyrics. They're very on the nose in a good way. But
Yeah,
where did what inspired the song that you can remember from, or what was kind of
sure.
the big focus for it lyrically?
Yeah, so with with a lot of my content, the thing that really struck a chord for people was when I would use like a Fox News clip, and then I would make my song, and it would be somewhat in response to that clip. And so, in order to do that, I have to watch a lot of Fox News to find the clips to then
Oof.
use in the content. And
Yeah.
so, at that point, I had written and released a handful of songs, and even to this day, when I have to do that, I know I have to do it, and in some strange way, I am grateful for it because it has propelled me to reach new people. But like, I still have to watch Fox News, you know. So you gotta take the good with the bad, I guess. But
Yeah.
that song was written out of having to watch just a brain rotting amount of Fox News, and it's so angry. It's it's kind of obvious. It's like, yeah, it's of course it is, but it's like, if you watched hours of it, like it truly is like just anger. Um, it's they don't stand for anything. They only stand in opposition of things. I've never heard them give a point of like, this is what I would like to see happen in the world. It's just, I don't want that happening. Well, I don't want any of that, whatever that may be, you know. Um, what it's women's rights and healthcare and whatever,
Hmm.
pure capitalism. But it's always in opposition to something, and it's always incredibly angry. And that's sort of where the inspiration came from, was like having to watch all of these clips, and you know, after watching, you feel like so brain rotted, but you could see how someone who maybe didn't have the preface of a bit of media literacy, or even just a balance of maybe getting your news from somewhere else. Not to say that all the other news is great, but just at least some kind of a balance. If you were truly on just a diet of Fox News, it's not hard to see how someone could be so angry. You know?
Yeah. And to your points about just like watching that and saying they stand for nothing, right? That's like
Yeah.
quite literally true. I remember there was it was I think it was the Daily Show with Jon Stewart back
Hmm.
when he like originally did it,
Yeah.
where he showed these side by side clips of one of the hosts, Sean Hannity, where it
Yeah.
talked about like the Surveillance Patriot Act stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it was the difference of when he talked about it during a Republican administration versus a Democratic one, and he would talk about the
Yeah.
same issue, but when it was the guy he liked, right?
Yeah.
It was all about how this is needed for security and all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then when it was the same thing, not changed at all under somebody
Yeah.
else, it was about how this is infringing on, which is true, it is infringing on your rights and all this kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
But like when you're just like using the same issue and just sort of doing like, but it's my guy, so I like it, and just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
believing
Yeah.
in nothing. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that would warp, and that's mild compared to like, yeah, abortion rights or
Sure.
wages or labor
Sure.
or anything. Like it's just like you said, like no wonder it's the most watched news source in the country. And it's like you wonder why so many people are just angry and they don't even know what they're angry about, right?
Yeah.
It's truly,
It's it really, like, dude, I've had to watch it so many times to get my videos together, and like there's nothing more deflating than on days when I'm trying to find my clip for my song or trying to, make my video work, and I've had to watch hours of it, and I come out of it and I don't have it. Oh my God. You like have to take a shower. You like feel gross.
Yeah.
But you brought up an interesting point with like Hannity, when it's his guy, times are great, but when it's coming from not their guy, it's terrible. It's funny when like it's like I'll get comments from people that are like, that are super pro Trump, and they're like, see, this is what happens under Biden. And we're like, we don't like him either, dog. Like, we don't like either of them. Like, let's make that clear, I think, yeah, it's like, we don't like either of them. It's like, when they're like, fuck Joe Biden, we're like, we agree on something. We've kind of got like a different flavor of it. We're probably headed in different paths, but it's interesting that we've intersected here. Yeah, don't ask me who to vote for.
No worry.
Yeah.
We're in alignment on that one. That reminds me of, we talked about obviously your song Pastimes, the content of that. I remember in one of the college protests, I don't remember which university, because there's been, in a good way, so many of them.
Yeah.
But there was the counter pro-Israel protesters,
Mm-hmm.
and the protesters actually fighting for something good. The pro, like, the kind of counter protesters or whatever started chanting "fuck Joe Biden" at these protesters, thinking it was like a gotcha because and then they just started like, they were like, all right, and they both started chanting it at the same time.
Something we can agree on.
Unity, right? It's like, oh my God. I know it's so funny when people just like believe in like parties or people instead of like, having beliefs. It's like, again,
exactly.
going back, it's like the epitome of what this song is. Again, it's like when you don't believe in anything, you just your head goes so much up your own asshole.
When you don't believe, you get pulled in every direction. When you don't believe it, you have no foundation. You don't stand in opposition to anything. You don't stand for something. It's just the wind takes you wherever. Whatever's happening on that day, you're going in that direction.
Right, 1,000%. Again, thanks for going over that one. Again, fantastic song.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'm not going to make you sit here and deep dive every single one of your songs. I will just say, for everybody listening, check out every single one of these songs. Go to, go to an example, like go to Genius Genius.com or one of these other lyric websites, and look at the lyrics as you listen to it as well. And it's like, I don't know, they're very poignant, very great when it comes to lyricism. And again, it's not like all lost in the music, because the music's genuinely fantastic as well. So again,
thank you.
Alex, really appreciate you coming on and doing this with me. I have one sort of gimmicky question I'll ask you, and then just kind of what's going on with you for this year for your music, and then where people can find you and all that good stuff. But I do this with some bands, and you seem like a fun guy, so I'll throw this at you. But it's a hypothetical I do with some people at the end of the show, and it's say you decide you're going to take Supergold on a national tour or international tour, right? And you got to get a band lineup, and you can pick any musicians, living or dead, to be in your band. So basically your fantasy league rock band. Yeah. Who would you pick to be in your band?
Man. Oh boy. Wow. I think you have to go Dave Grohl on drums, right?
Yep.
That would be, it's a generic answer, but it's really the only right one.
Especially with like that Americana rock vibe, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He would nail it.
Dude,
yeah.
It's the most generic answer, but it's the only right answer.
It's because it's a correct answer. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Right. 2 + 2 is 4, and if you need drums, it's Dave Grohl. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh. Who else would I have in my band? I mean, I'd probably go Springsteen, right? If I'm just ripping him off every day, might as well just get it from the source.
And he can do harmonies for you.
Yeah, might as well get it unfiltered. I mean, that's pretty much a great band right there. Gosh, I don't know. If I had to fill the other positions, is maybe a bit of a cop out, but I would probably just try and get my friends. I think it would just be there's guys that I've played with for a long time that like it would be great that if we were going on a big tour to just bring all the friends and share in the experience with them.
And they get to
Everyone,
hang
all
out
the
with Dave
celebrities.
Grohl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I will forever have brownie points if I made that
Yeah,
happen. I will always be the guy.
yeah, 100%. No,
Yeah.
I actually like that answer because you got legends and you also pick your friends all in the same
Yeah.
bit, so it's good.
Yeah.
Um,
All the legends, they've already experienced it, man.
yeah,
Let's make it
yeah,
fun.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, and going from that, just kind of share what whether it's you said you're kind of not doing shows right now, right? But like, what is in store for Supergold, the project in general for
Sure.
this year? Are you planning to do a song every 2 weeks again this entire year, or
Gosh,
what's the
I'm
plan?
trying. I'm trying to get back in the swing. I'm coming off like a stint of writer's block. I don't believe in writer's block, but I was coming off a stint of like trying to level up my game, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, if you want to see me play shows in my Instagram, or I should say on my website, supergoldfl.com, there's a link there where you can let me know what city I should come play. Shows are definitely in my future. It's what I want to do more than anything. So many people have reached out for me to come play their city. But I don't know where to go, and I don't have enough people telling me where to go, or at least not in a tangible sense that I can point to.
right.
So if you want me to come play your city, supergoldfl.com, there's a link there. And then I'll just be releasing music on Spotify and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually I saw that on your link tree, and I was like, that's actually a really good idea for someone in your situation, right? Where you've built up this
Yeah,
platform. Now it's like, all right, now who's actually going to come out to the show
yeah.
that I'm playing,
It's
right?
like
Yeah,
you
that's
guys
great.
gotta tell me where to go. I don't
Yeah,
want to
right,
go
right,
to
right. I'm not going to guess,
BFE.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Let me
yeah.
know, and if enough people want it, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, last couple things. Obviously, you kind
Yes.
of already did it there for a sec. Just plug where people can find your stuff or
Yeah.
find you, and then I always play a song at the end. Always let the guests pick. So
Right on.
out of your catalog, just pick the song you want people to hear if maybe they haven't heard you
Ooh.
before.
Out of my catalog. Let's just go with pastimes. People have been
Yeah,
really resonating with that one. I feel like
it's a
it
great one.
probably makes sense
Yeah,
for the time. But as far as the other stuff, yeah, it's where I'm at, I guess in my little musical world, there's really only two things is making songs, and if you want me to come to your city, that's where it's at. And then if you want to follow me on the old social media, I try and be as active as I can.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And all that stuff will be in the notes as well for anybody listening. Again, we're gonna play pastimes from Super Gold on Powerless Podcast. And Alex, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Brandon, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.